Hello everyone, welcome back to Red vs. Blue episode summaries. Today we'll be doing episode 15, How the Other Half Lives. Sarge, now on the brink of death as a result of being shot in the head by Caboose, believes he wakes up in the afterlife, which essentially just looks like Blood Gulch with a gray filter, repeatedly calling out greetings to see if anyone else was there. He eventually gets Church's attention, who begs him to stop yelling, stating he heard him already. Sarge questions where exactly he is, with Church claiming that it was difficult to explain, but reminded Sarge that he was shot in the head. Sarge clarified if that meant he was dead, with Church awkwardly confirming, stating death was how he ended up in this place, referring to himself as well. Sarge further questions if Church is an angle, prompting Church to chuckle, lying that he was. He then asks Sarge for $10, claiming it was the cost for getting into heaven, wanting to mess with him. Sarge countered that he didn't have anything, stating that his wallet was back in the Warthog, leading Church to deny Sarge entry, saying not having enough money was an unfortunate way to get banned to hell for all eternity, but reinforced that money was required. Sarge angrily retorted that he didn't even recall dying, leading Church to apologize, explaining how he was possessing him when he died. Sarge claimed that was unfair, with Church shrugging off the complaint, telling him to join the club, retorting that he was killed by his own tank. As if on cue, Sheila, who was also technically dead, jokingly aimed at Church and locked on target, annoying Church as he fake laughs and demands she shuts up and goes back to the blue base by herself, stating he hasn't given her permission to speak since he hasn't forgiven her yet. Sheila silently obliges as she shooed away. Meanwhile, back in the physical world, Griff and Simmons had gathered around Sarge's body, with Griff yelling at Sarge encouragingly not to die, stating it was an order. Back in the afterlife, Sarge could faintly hear Griff's calls, questioning where the sound was coming from. Church confirmed that the calls were coming from his team trying to save him, as Griff continued shouting his encouragement while administering CPR poorly. Sarge criticized this poor form from the afterlife, as Simmons pointed out that it wasn't working, suggesting they should try another method. Church prayed Simmons wouldn't suggest mouth-to-mouth, right as the idea came out from Simmons' lips, leading Church to say he was about to leave in disgust. Sarge was practically crying in disbelief at how hard his team was trying to save him, leading Church to question why they wouldn't, thinking it was only his team that wouldn't try to save one of their members. Sarge sadly responded that he always thought his team hated him, with Church telling him not to sell himself short, claiming he was so likable Church might let him into heaven for only $5 instead. Sarge, more hopeful he would live, was more willing to question Church's legitimacy, questioning Church on why he didn't have any wings as an angel. Church quickly tried to shrug off the question, joking that nobody rang a bell, and demanding the $5. Sarge doesn't respond, but instead mentions how he always hated Griff the most, but regretted never telling him that he was actually his son. Church shouted in disbelief at this revelation, with Sarge clarifying he was just joking, but was sad that he would never get to screw with Griff again, stating he typically wanted to use a lie like that. As Sarge said that, though, Griff's remedies worked, and Sarge's breath returned, even more so to Church's jealous shock than Sarge's. Sarge calmly said, "We'll all be a monkeys," before cutting off the weird analogy and just saying he couldn't believe they actually saved him. Church screamed in desperation for Sarge to stay, claiming they needed to even the sides out. Sarge simply responded by thanking Church for his help, calling him a wingless angel, asking if he would remember his time here. Church responded that would require $2, desperate to trick Sarge somehow, but Sarge had awoken, once again in the physical world, before he could hear Church. Sarge coughed as he immediately stood up professionally, questioning what happened to Griffin Simmons. He had no memory of his time in the afterlife, with it likely actually all being a hallucination due to his armor locking up when he was shot. Simmons refreshed Sarge on what had happened, leading Sarge to happily thank Simmons, but when Simmons clarified that Griff did most of the work, he instead scolded Griff for giving someone CPR for a bullet to the head, something that should never work. Griff, used to this treatment, could only just sarcastically respond, "You're welcome, sir," as Sarge continued berating him, sarcastically instructing him to rub his neck with aloe vera if he gets stabbed in the toe. And credit to the Red vs. Blue wiki for this explanation, but the recovery mode sequence seen in this episode explains the afterlife sequence seen in how the other half lives. When Sarge was shot during Church's possession, the bullet didn't kill him as previously implied, but put his armor into recovery mode. Church and Sheila, being AIs, were also present as the recovery mode was electronically induced. Although Sarge was able to communicate with them, His recovery mode deactivated once he was resuscitated, thus reviving him. As Church and Sheila were originally presented as dead, this sequence was legitimately presented as the afterlife.
So there's your explanation. It obviously wasn't the afterlife if you've seen the rest of the series. And, yeah.